Challenger, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9.
It was a moment when 7 lives were lost, and American space exploration changed forever. Now, 30 years later, we're remembering the Challenger tragedy. 73 seconds after lifting off from Kennedy Space Center, the Challenger exploded during what was billed as an historic launch because it was the first mission for a teacher in space.
This morning, families of the astronauts returned to the Cape, joining with NASA officials and workers and others for a memorial. Tarek is joining us now with more on this moving tribute. Tarek?
And Tom, the widows, the sons and the daughters of the deceased gathered for an hour-long ceremony at the Kennedy Space Center today. And while they were paying tribute to the fallen crew, astronauts currently in space also paused to remember the tragedy 30 years ago today. Aboard the International Space Station, American astronaut Scott Kelly calls for a moment of silence.
And their legacy lives on in our achievement in space.
Recognizing the crew members aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger. Meanwhile, on Earth, at the Kennedy Space Center, another tribute with the crew's families.
I'd like for those family members to stand, and I'd love for us to all give them an applause.
Widows, sons, and daughters and NASA administrators shared the grief that still lingers today. Retired astronauts like Barbara Morgan recalled what each of the 7 Challenger crew taught her while she was in the Teacher in Space program.
Ron McNair taught me faith, strong faith, faith in a higher being, and how strong faith creates faith in oneself and in others.
It's hard to believe that it's been 30 years since we lost Challenger and her crew. Those of us that were old enough to remember can probably tell you exactly where we were and what we were doing that morning, January 28th, 1986.
Everyone agreed today the pain is still fresh, knowing the disaster could have been prevented if NASA would have heeded the warnings.
We learned many lessons from the loss of Challenger, and the vehicle that returned to flight 2.5 years later may have looked the same, but it had hundreds of changes, making it safer and more reliable. The Challenger crew will forever be young.
Due to inclement weather, the tribute was held inside of the Kennedy Space Center. NASA officials also paid tribute to the astronauts who lost their lives on board the Space Shuttle Columbia and Apollo 1. Tom?
Thank you, Tarek. If you missed our special Tuesday night, Challenger, A Rush to Launch, we are showing it again tonight at 9 on this TV and also Sunday afternoon at 5 here on Channel 4. And we have a section on our website devoted to Challenger. You can watch our entire Challenger Rush to Launch documentary as well as tributes to the 7 astronauts and unedited interviews from the documentary. That and more at news4jax.com/Challenger.